man, just the knife in the kidneys over all these years. And the sacrifices that I made to love you. Wasted!
Cody's latest side hustle was supposed to be the golden ticket. At least, that's how he pitched it. A premium Cameo video, wrapped in the promise of personal business advice, all yours for $420. Not $42, $420. The sales pitch, according to those who saw it, painted a picture of exclusive insights, game-changing tips, and wisdom straight from the man who once ran a household so complex it practically needed its own corporate board. But now, sources whisper the shine has worn off. Fast? Allegedly, some buyers say what they got felt less like insider strategy and more like a reheated pep talk. No official confirmation from Cody, of course, but the online murmurs are growing louder, and they are not kind. The idea of buying direct access to a familiar reality TV figure isn't new, and Cameo has turned it into an industry. But this wasn't just a happy birthday shout-out or a lighthearted holiday greeting. This was positioned as business advice. And in that world, words matter. One viewer claimed, again, unverified, that their pricey session consisted mainly of vague encouragement, a few anecdotes about sticking with your dreams, and not a single concrete action step. Another alleged that the advice could have been found on the first page of a free Google search. None of this has been confirmed by Cody or his team, but it's the kind of chatter that sticks. And why would he take this route now? Insiders speculate that with multiple mortgages, property taxes, and a lifestyle that doesn't exactly run on goodwill alone, extra revenue streams aren't just appealing, they're necessary. After all, running a large household is costly, even when it's no longer a single unified household. But for some fans, the math just isn't adding up. $420 could buy several sessions with a certified business coach, or a seat in a small business seminar, or even a month of premium online training. So the question they're asking quietly in fan forums and loudly in comment sections is, what exactly are you paying for here? There's also the emotional angle. For longtime Sister Wives followers, getting a personal message from Cody might feel like a slice of the show brought into real life. That parasocial connection can be powerful. It's the feeling of being seen by someone you've watched for years. But when the glow fades and buyers compare notes, disappointment can turn into backlash.
Listen, I might be suffering delusions of grandeur. I wanted to go. I wanted to run for office. I wanted to get in control of my destiny.
Rumor has it some have gone so far as to call the offer snake oil. Those are strong words, even if they're just opinion, and they can be poison to a personal brand. The family dynamics make this all juicier. Sources claim Janelle, if asked, would frame it as tuition, meaning you paid to learn a lesson. Christine, others speculate, would simply shrug, keep working her own ventures, and let the marketplace decide Cody's fate. Whether any of that's true is anyone's guess. What is clear is that when a price tag this steep meets a product this subjective, the fallout can be swift. And with the conversation heating up, one question hangs over it all. Will Cody rebrand, slash the price, or double down and blame the critics? At first, the chatter was just mild disbelief, fans half joking, half serious about the idea of paying $420 for Cody Brown's so-called business advice. But that humor shifted quickly once early buyers started sharing their impressions. According to speculation in multiple fan spaces, some claim they received nothing more than what felt like generic motivational chatter, pep talks that could have been lifted straight from a self-help blog, or as one alleged buyer put it, a pep rally without the game. These weren't long, in-depth sit-downs either. According to the whispers, some alleged sessions reportedly clocked in at only a few minutes, yet carried the full premium price tag. That mismatch between cost and content became the tinder for a larger fire, and then came the so-called receipt leaks. No official confirmation, of course, but several social media posts began to appear describing what was allegedly covered in these calls. One buyer claimed that the strategic advice amounted to vague statements like, just believe in yourself and keep going, while another alleged that Cody's tips were so disconnected from their real-life challenges that they felt like he hadn't even listened. Whether these accounts were fully accurate or not, the perception was already out there. This wasn't high-level business consulting, it was a reality star cash grab.
But I figure if I could go and run for office there, I might be able to change the world, or change our world.
What made the backlash sharper was the sense of personal investment from fans. Many of these buyers had followed the Brown family for years, felt they knew Cody, and saw the offer as a unique way to connect, while getting tangible value. But the disappointment, at least from what was being posted, felt almost personal. One alleged buyer summed it up with biting sarcasm. I didn't pay $400 for a fortune cookie, but that's what I got. As these posts circulated, other fans began dissecting whether the offer was ever meant to deliver serious business strategy or if it was simply an extension of the reality TV persona. Loud, confident, but light on substance. That's when the conversation started to harden, and buyers turned critics began comparing notes. The language shifted from curiosity to frustration, and before long, the first mentions of snake oil appeared in comment threads. And once that label gets traction, fair or not, it's nearly impossible to shake. And here's where it gets even messier. The more people talked, the more stories came out, and the bigger the ripple grew. Once the snake oil phrase made its debut, it spread like wildfire. It popped up in Facebook group threads, Reddit sidebars, and even in the captions of snarky Instagram reels. It didn't matter whether the original buyers had meant it literally or just as a sarcastic jab. Once a nickname like that catches on in the reality TV sphere, it takes on a life of its own. Fans who'd never even considered buying Kody's so-called business sessions were suddenly experts in why it was a bad deal. They dissected every clip of him talking about strategy, slowing down Cameo snippets to point out how little was actually being said. Insiders whispered that Kody seemed blindsided by the backlash, allegedly telling friends he thought people would jump at the chance to learn from someone who's built a brand. But the very audience he was banking on had already turned.
You get a boyfriend who wants some of our money, and between you, your boyfriend, and the state of Utah, I lose any access to Truly and all my money.
Longtime viewers pointed to the irony. This was the same man who on the show often struggled to manage not just multiple households but his own family's finances. As one viral comment put it, "If I wanted advice on running my life into the ground, sure, I'd pay him." The conversation stopped being about whether the advice had value and morphed into a referendum on Kody's entire public persona. Every past moment where he'd been boastful about his leadership or decision-making got dragged back into the spotlight, now framed as proof that the $420 price tag was laughably out of touch. Fans began pairing screenshots of old Sister Wives episodes with sarcastic captions like, "And here's the man who will help you succeed." To make matters worse, some buyers allegedly tried to get refunds, and when those attempts failed, they shared their experiences even louder. Whether their claims were entirely accurate or just fueled by anger, they added gasoline to an already raging PR fire. The snake oil tag became shorthand for the whole situation. Easy to remember, easy to repeat, and impossible for Kody to reframe without looking defensive. And that's when another layer to the drama began to surface. Claims that this might not have been the first time Kody had tried to monetize his name in ways that left fans feeling shortchanged. It didn't take long for fans with long memories to start connecting dots between Kody's latest venture and a string of earlier money-making efforts that hadn't exactly gone over well. Within hours of the snake oil nickname catching on, social media sleuths were resurfacing screenshots, old interviews, and even bits of long-forgotten Sister Wives episodes, where Kody had pitched some kind of side hustle. They weren't just throwing shade for sport, they were building a timeline that painted a pattern. One clip making the rounds showed Kody in full salesman mode years ago, talking up a multi-level marketing company he and some of the wives had briefly been involved in. At the time, he described it as a once-in-a-lifetime business opportunity, but fans remembered how quickly it fizzled out. Sources close to the family claim the returns never came close to what was promised, and some allege that Kody quietly distanced himself from it when questions about the company's legitimacy began to swirl. That memory alone was enough to make some viewers suspicious about his $420 Cameo pitch. Then came whispers about other smaller attempts, a custom jewelry line that never seemed to take off, a half-hearted online coaching concept tied to family values, and even a brief foray into selling autographed Sister Wives merchandise at what many considered eyebrow-raising prices.
This is our new hurricane house. Our other hurricane house is actually right there.
None of these projects had resulted in lasting success, but Kody had always found a way to frame them as stepping stones or learning experiences. This time, however, fans weren't buying the narrative. Insiders say that in his mind, the Cameo coaching sessions were a way to capitalize on his name recognition without having to build a new product from scratch. From a purely business perspective, it made sense. Low overhead, no shipping, no manufacturing, and the ability to market directly to people who already knew him. But the problem was the gap between what people thought they'd get and what they actually received. Reports from disappointed buyers painted the sessions as light on substance, heavy on vague motivation, and oddly peppered with tangents about his own TV career. Once those accounts started circulating, the comparisons to past schemes grew sharper. Fans began posting side-by-side graphics. On one side, a screenshot of Cody promoting his latest offer. On the other, a still from a past episode where a similar pitch had ended in nothing. Hashtags like history repeats and Cody cash grab started trending in Sister Wives fan spaces. One particularly brutal meme featured Cody holding a sign that read, "Business plan, step 1, get paid, step 2, question mark. Step 3, profit." For viewers who had followed the Brown family drama for over a decade, this wasn't just about one overpriced service, it was about trust. And that trust, already worn thin by years of televised arguments, shifting alliances, and publicized money struggles, was now hanging by a thread. Allegedly, even some of his inner circle were questioning whether this was the right move. A source told one fan blog, he thinks he's proving the haters wrong, but he's just giving them more material. And just when it seemed like the storm might begin to die down, another bombshell dropped. Someone claimed they had receipts from a very recent deal Cody had been working on behind the scenes, one that could make the Cameo Backlash look like a warm-up act. The leak didn't come from a major tabloid or a press release. It came from the Sister Wives fan underground, a network of longtime viewers who swap screenshots, cross-reference timelines, and track every public move like it's a full-time job. One of these so-called armchair investigators claimed they'd stumbled across documents tied to a business registration in Cody's name, filed only weeks before the Cameo Backlash began. According to their digging, it wasn't just another coaching sideline. It was something bigger, flashier, and far more questionable in the eyes of his critics. The alleged venture, a paid family business retreat concept, supposedly marketed as a way for couples and relatives to heal rifts, strengthen bonds, and unlock financial harmony. On paper, it sounded like a wholesome extension of his TV persona. After all, the Brown family's entire brand had once been about unity, resilience, and unconventional love, but the proposed price tag sent jaws dropping. Early promotional drafts, supposedly captured in the leak, listed packages starting at over $3,000 for a weekend, not including travel or accommodations. Insiders whispered that the retreat idea had been quietly pitched to a few potential partners, possibly even reality TV colleagues, as a way to branch out beyond the Sister Wives franchise while still milking its notoriety. One alleged selling point, Cody's unique lived experience managing multiple households. But fans were quick to point out the irony. Why would anyone pay thousands to learn relationship and financial harmony from a man whose televised life had been marked by fractured marriages and public money disputes? The moment the leak hit fan forums, the commentary turned savage. Some accused Cody of using the $420 Cameo sessions as a trial balloon to see if people would pay high prices for personal access. Others speculated that the Cameo pitch was just a feeder system, hook someone with a short one-on-one chat, then upsell them to a pricey retreat. Whether or not that was his intention, the timing of the leak made it impossible for him to spin the narrative. The backlash from the Cameo controversy had barely cooled, and now here was fuel for a whole new round of criticism. One particularly damning post compared the retreat to a reality TV cult seminar, drawing parallels to infamous get-rich-quick conferences, where attendees left lighter in the wallet and heavier in regret. Memes started circulating showing Cody in a fake brochure. Spend a weekend learning the secrets of lasting love, results may vary. The humor was biting, but the undercurrent was serious. People were starting to view his every business move as a cash grab, dressed up in self-help clothing. Allegedly, the leak rattled more than just fans. A source close to one of Cody's adult children claimed they were blindsided by the news and worried about how their family name would be used. The insider said, "They're afraid this is going to get ugly. It's one thing to sell cameos, but once you start taking thousands from people for advice, you're playing a whole different game." Cody, for his part, stayed publicly silent, at least for now. No Instagram clarifications, no video statements, no defensive Cameo posts. But insiders insist that behind the scenes, he was scrambling to contain the fallout. And according to one particularly plugged-in source, the strategy he chose next was so unexpected that it left even his closest supporters wondering if he'd finally lost his grip on reality. When the retreat leak started making the rounds, most people assumed Cody would do what any seasoned reality star does when the tide turns: lay low, let the outrage cycle burn itself out, then reappear with a carefully curated photo of a steak dinner or a vague inspirational quote. But instead, according to multiple insiders, Cody chose the one option that shocked even his critics. He doubled down. Rather than shelving the idea, sources claim he began privately reaching out to potential founding members of the retreat program, offering them discounted early bird pricing if they signed on before an official launch. The catch? These offers allegedly came with non-disclosure agreements, a move that only deepened fans' suspicion that something about the whole operation didn't pass the smell test. One insider close to the situation said it was like he didn't even hear the criticism. The leak didn't scare him. It made him push harder. In his mind, the fact that people were talking about it meant there was interest, and interest meant money on the table. The logic might work in the world of clickbait headlines, but in the realm of paid retreats and big-ticket coaching programs, that kind of notoriety can sink a launch before it even gets off the ground. To make matters worse, some of the very people Kody allegedly approached were quick to share their experiences anonymously online. One claimed that the special offer still clocked in at nearly $2,000 for a weekend, plus an optional $420 private coaching hour with Kody himself. Yes, the same amount that caused the Cameo controversy in the first place. That detail sent fans into a frenzy, calling it proof that he had no intention of walking away from the high-ticket advice game, no matter how bad the optics. Meanwhile, Kody's silence on social media was starting to feel less like a strategic pause and more like a retreat in its own right. The longer he stayed quiet, the more room it gave fans to fill the void with their own theories. Was he waiting for the backlash to peak so he could ride back in as a misunderstood businessman? Was he secretly filming something for TLC that would turn the entire mess into a storyline? Or was he, as one blunt commenter put it, just hoping we'd all get distracted by Robin's next spending spree? What made the situation even more bizarre was the rumor, unverified but persistent, that Kody was floating the idea of hosting the first retreat at a location linked to one of his remaining business contacts, someone allegedly known in the multi-level marketing circuit. That alone was enough to spark whispers about whether this whole plan was really about healing family bonds, or if it was just another revenue stream in a long pattern of opportunistic ventures. The tension hit a new peak when one of Kody's adult kids posted a cryptic social media story, just a black screen with the words, "Not my circus, not my monkeys." It wasn't an outright confirmation of family disapproval, but to fans, it might as well have been a megaphone announcement. And just like that, the drama shifted from Kody versus the fans to Kody versus his own household, a shift that promised even more fireworks ahead. And fireworks there were, because the next move Kody allegedly made didn't just risk alienating his fan base, it risked alienating the very family members whose goodwill he needed the most. If there's one thing the Browns have mastered after all these years on reality TV, it's the art of keeping a united front, at least until the cameras stop rolling. But this time, insiders claim the cracks weren't just showing. They were widening by the day. Kody's decision to push forward with his $420 advice pitch, even after the backlash, was reportedly met with more than just eye rolls behind closed doors. Sources say Janelle, ever the pragmatist, was the first to voice her concerns, allegedly pointing out that the optics were terrible and the timing worse. She's been known to take a live and let live approach when it comes to Kody's more, let's say, unconventional business ventures, but friends claim she drew the line here. It's one thing when you're selling Sister Wives branded aprons or doing the odd Cameo birthday message, one insider explained. It's another when you're asking people for hundreds of dollars in exchange for vague promises of business wisdom when your own track record is, well, complicated. Christine, who has perfected the art of making shade look like sunshine, allegedly took a more subtle approach. A social media post of hers popped up during the height of the drama, her smiling over coffee with the caption, "The best advice is free, and it comes with breakfast." Fans instantly clocked it as a thinly veiled jab, with some even screenshotting it alongside Kody's Cameo listing for maximum effect. Even Robin, who has historically stood firmly in Kody's corner no matter how unpopular the decision, was said to be uneasy, not necessarily about the ethics of the pitch, but about the fallout. According to a source familiar with the couple's dynamic, Robin allegedly worried that the controversy could impact her own side ventures, particularly anything tied to their shared public image. Robin's not blind, the source added. She knows their brand is fragile right now. She didn't want to see it dragged into another scandal. But perhaps the most telling sign of the brewing tension came from the adult kids. A few of them, while careful not to name names, started posting quotes and memes about knowing your worth and recognizing a hustle when you see one. For viewers who've been following the family for years, these posts weren't random. They were a clear signal that the younger generation wasn't buying what Kody was selling, literally or figuratively. The backlash within the family didn't just stay in the realm of passive-aggressive posts and private arguments. Rumor has it that during a recent gathering, one of the kids confronted Kody directly about the Cameo offer. The exchange reportedly got heated, with Kody defending his right to earn money, however he sees fit, and the younger Brown firing back with a blunt, "Not at the expense of your dignity." If true, that moment marked one of the rare times someone from his inner circle openly challenged him without the filter of a confessional camera. This growing resistance at home put Cody in a precarious position. On one side, he had the potential to cash in on an idea he clearly believed in. On the other, he risked alienating not just fans, but the people whose approval, or at least cooperation, he needed to keep his public narrative afloat. It was a gamble, and if history has taught us anything about Kody Brown, it's that he doesn't always bet where the odds are in his favor. And that gamble? It was about to push the tension from whispers and side-eye into full-blown family drama that would spill far beyond the walls of the Brown households. The public conversation was becoming impossible for the Browns to ignore. What started as a handful of sarcastic comments on social media had snowballed into a full-blown narrative, one that painted Kody not as the charismatic, unconventional patriarch from his early sister wives' days, but as a man scrambling for cash in ways that felt increasingly desperate. And the $420 business advice Cameo? That was the headline everyone seemed to latch onto. Across fan groups and forums, the language was blunt. Snake oil became the go-to phrase, repeated so often it felt like it was part of Kody's new branding. Others accused him of selling dreams without the substance to back them up. And while the Browns have weathered plenty of criticism before, there was something different about this wave. It was sharper, more personal, and harder to brush off. Insiders say Kody saw the whole thing as a misunderstanding. In his mind, he wasn't selling false hope. He was offering access to decades of experience in managing a complex, high-profile family and navigating the business of reality TV. But the problem was perception. In the public eye, that experience looked less like savvy entrepreneurship and more like a cautionary tale of fractured relationships, financial instability, and burned bridges. To make matters worse, old footage began resurfacing. Clips from past seasons showing Kody making grand promises that never seemed to pan out were being stitched together in viral TikToks, alongside screenshots of the $420 offer. The editing was merciless. Kody declaring he had big plans for the family, cut right before a news headline about the Browns losing property or splitting households. These videos racked up hundreds of thousands of views, feeding the impression that the Cameo was less a serious business opportunity and more a parody of one. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the contrast between Kody's public spin and the private reality was becoming harder to reconcile. Multiple sources allege that the family's finances were already under strain, something viewers had suspected but rarely heard directly from the Browns themselves. Robin's household expenses, legal fees, and the costs of maintaining multiple properties were reportedly eating into whatever income the show and side ventures brought in. For fans doing the math, the Cameo pitch started to look less like an ambitious experiment and more like a thinly veiled cash grab. But perhaps the most damaging part of the public backlash was how it reframed Kody's legacy. Instead of being remembered as the bold, if controversial figure who challenged societal norms, he was increasingly viewed as a man out of touch with both his audience and the changing dynamics of his own family. And in a media landscape that thrives on perception, that shift was deadly. Still, Kody seemed determined to hold the line. Sources say he believed the noise would eventually die down, that loyal supporters would see the value in what he was offering. But those closest to him allegedly worried the opposite was true, that the longer the Cameo remained up, the more entrenched the snake oil narrative would become. And as one insider ominously put it, the damage wasn't just to his image, it was to his control. Once people start seeing you as a salesman instead of a leader, they stop following your lead. The question now was whether Kody even realized just how far that shift had already gone. And soon, a series of events would make it painfully clear. The confrontation didn't come from an online critic or an anonymous forum post, it came from within the family. According to sources close to the Browns, it was one of Kody's older children who finally said what so many people had been whispering. During what was supposed to be a casual family dinner, the topic of Dad's business advice popped up, and within minutes, the atmosphere shifted from light banter to sharp-edged tension. Those present say the comment was simple, almost offhand. "Dad, who's actually paying you $420 for advice?" But the sting was in the tone, equal parts disbelief and challenge. The table went quiet. Robin allegedly tried to deflect, steering the conversation towards safer ground, but Kody didn't let it slide. His face tightened, and the defensive posture was instant. For Kody, the $420 Cameo wasn't just a side hustle, it was proof, in his mind, that he still had authority, influence, and marketable wisdom. To have that questioned, and by his own child, was a direct hit. He reportedly launched into a speech about the value of his life experience, the unique insight he could offer about family management, business negotiations, and personal resilience. He reminded them that he had led a high-profile family through over a decade of reality TV, while building a brand that kept them in the public conversation. But the rebuttal came fast. The child, clearly fed up, pointed out that most of the business moves Cody was selling advice on had ended in disputes, property losses, or public fallout. They questioned whether it was ethical to charge strangers hundreds of dollars for what might amount to generic pep talks, especially when the family's own history was filled with unresolved conflicts. By now, Robin was reportedly tense, avoiding eye contact, while others around the table shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the usual playful back and forth. This was a full-on challenge to Cody's credibility, and it was happening in front of witnesses. Cody's voice allegedly grew louder, his tone sharper, insisting that critics inside the family or out didn't understand the bigger picture. But every word seemed to widen the gap rather than close it. Insiders claim that after that night, the energy in the household shifted. The Cameo pitch was no longer just an online curiosity. It had become a fault line in the family dynamic. Some saw it as a harmless attempt to monetize his experience. Others viewed it as a grift that reflected poorly on all of them. And the most dangerous part for Cody was that this division wasn't happening in private anymore. Word of the argument began to leak, first as vague social media posts from extended family members, then as more specific tea dropped in fan forums. It was only a matter of time before the story reached the tabloids, and once it did, the narrative turned brutal. Headlines framed Cody as a fallen patriarch, desperate to maintain relevance by charging premium prices for questionable services. The $420 figure was repeated so often it became a punchline, overshadowing almost every other aspect of his public image. But as damaging as the press was, the real breaking point wasn't about clicks or comments, it was about control. For years, Cody had managed to set the tone in both the family and the fan base. Now he was reacting, defending, and worst of all, losing the ability to dictate the story. And according to one family insider, that loss of control was the one thing he could never truly forgive. Still, Cody wasn't ready to fold. He had one more move in mind, a way to flip the narrative and prove the doubters wrong. But what he didn't realize was that his next step would invite even more scrutiny than the Cameo itself. Cody's last-ditch strategy wasn't subtle, and it wasn't quiet. If the $420 Cameo pitch had been mocked for lacking credibility, his plan was to drown out the mockery with volume, polish, and a big dose of spectacle. He allegedly decided that instead of downplaying the criticism, he would double down, turning the entire backlash into a selling point. In his mind, the joke was on the haters. If people couldn't stop talking about the price, then fine, he'd make the price part of the brand. According to insiders, he filmed a series of highly produced clips, leaning into the number like it was a badge of honor. The videos were slicker than anything he'd posted in months. Better lighting, sharper sound, dramatic music swelling under his monologues. Cody stood in front of framed photos from the family's glory days on TLC, using them as proof of his real-world expertise. He framed himself as the man who had navigated fame, family expansion, and financial turbulence, and survived. And now, he said, he was offering his exclusive blueprint to anyone willing to invest in themselves for $420. The rollout was immediate. Robin allegedly shared the clips on her own accounts, tagging them with lines like, "Only the brave will understand the value." It was an open dare to the critics, and for a brief moment, it looked like Cody's gamble might pay off. The videos drew thousands of views in hours, and some of his most loyal fans jumped in with supportive comments, praising his resilience and telling the trolls to find another hobby. But the internet is rarely that forgiving, especially when a controversy is still fresh. Within days, reaction videos began to surface. YouTubers breaking down his pitch frame by frame, TikTokers parodying his exclusive blueprint with absurd fake tips like Step 1, marry 4 wives, and Step 2, lose all the property in court. The $420 tag became meme currency, popping up in comment sections unrelated to Cody entirely. It wasn't just Sister Wives fans talking anymore, it had spilled into wider pop culture commentary. And then came the part Cody hadn't calculated for. The money trail didn't vanish just because he leaned into the joke. In fact, the renewed attention seemed to invite fresh digging into his finances. Online sleuths started connecting dots between recent property filings, business license changes, and sudden shifts in bank loan records. The theory gaining steam was that Cody wasn't just doing cameos for fun, he needed the cash flow fast. This was when Janelle allegedly dropped her final razor-sharp comment. During a casual conversation with mutual friends, one that of course quickly made its way back to the public, she reportedly quipped, "I guess we all have our hustle. Mine just doesn't involve charging strangers for advice I wouldn't take myself." It was the kind of line that didn't have to be confirmed to hit hard. Fans immediately ran with it, interpreting it as the ultimate mic drop. By the end of the week, the story had gone full circle. Cody's final push had given him more visibility. Yes, but not in the way he hoped. Instead of reclaiming the narrative, he had cemented the $420 Cameo as a symbol of his fall from grace. What had started as a side hustle now felt like a monument to stubbornness and possibly desperation. And here's the kicker. Whether you think Cody's move was bold, foolish, or a mix of both, it's clear this saga isn't just about a number on a price tag. It's about what happens when public image, family history, and money collide in the open, with nowhere to hide. So now it's over to you. Was Cody's $420 gamble a brilliant own-the-joke strategy, or proof he's completely out of touch with reality? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you've been following every twist of this drama, and make sure you're subscribed because the next video on your screen is waiting. And trust me, you won't believe what's coming next.